everyone. I would like to welcome you to this session, and I would like to thank the students here at HBKU for the very kind invite. It is an opportunity for me to explain to you my research field, the exciting things we do here at Hamad bin Khalifa University at the College of Science and Engineering. The things we do with our students, our research students. So my name is Dena Al-Thani. I'm an assistant professor at the College of Science and Engineering at Hamad bin Khalifa University. I got my PhD degree almost 5 years ago from the UK, from Queen Mary, University of London, where I did both my master's and PhD degrees. My master's was in software engineering, and my PhD was in human-computer interaction, which is basically the area I majored in my research, and it is actually the core area of my research interest. In my PhD, I looked at how can we support information seeking for the visually impaired, means the blind users. So throughout my life, I've always had interest in the user-centered design. From my bachelor degree in computer science in Qatar University long time ago, I've always had designing interface as my passion, and I've majored in it because it is something I'm interested in. I've also worked in the industry for quite some time. Basically, I worked in the government here in Qatar as well as in the private sector with the Ooredoo telecommunication company. I used to look after the user portal and the customer's experience from that perspective. So in the lecture today, I would like to give you some understanding of the projects we do here at Hamad bin Khalifa University. So just a second. Just for the purpose of the bandwidth, I will turn off the camera during the talk and then I will reopen it. So basically, the project is designing an interface for the children with autism spectrum disorder. And why did I choose autism? As I said before, it is actually in my core interest to design for the user, to design user interfaces and evaluate user interfaces. I have a very special interest into disability, elderly, and vulnerable population. By saying vulnerable population, we refer to the populations that are not really the main target when technology is designed. So to name few, they are the children, the elderly, people with disability. And those are very variant and huge groups of users. Each comes with its special needs. So from here, the work we do at Hamad bin Khalifa University and in my research group in particular, it is to look into inclusive design, means we design for all. And in today's project or in today's presentation, I will present one of our projects that gained a lot of interest throughout the past 3 years. And I will say, and I will tell you why it gained this much interest. So the project basically focuses on designing mixed reality platforms for learning for children with autism spectrum disorder. Here I present the team. Of course, this is a collective work by the team members here. In any research project, you cannot do really the research yourself. It's usually a huge team of effort putting together from different, people from different background and basically interest. So here we have in our team is Ms. Yasmin Abdelal. Ms. Yasmin is a master's in data analytics student here at HBKU. Ms. Asma Hassan, she's a graduate of HBKU in the Master of Information System in Health Management. Dr. Yunus. Dr. Yunus is actually the lead software engineer at the College of Science and Engineering, and he was leading the engineering component of this project. Dr. Kamran Khawaja is a postdoctoral researcher at Hamad bin Khalifa University, in which we work together in a number of projects related to autism and technology. Mr. Muhammad Hijab is also a graduate of the Master in Data Analytics for Health Management at HBKU. And lastly is myself. So we actually, this project is actually an outcome of 3 grants. The first grant was by HBKU Innovation Center in 2018. We built on that grant. We built basically on the outcome of that grant. And following that, we applied actually just last year around May. We applied for a grant from QNRF. It used to be called the Rapid Response Grant, and it is a grant that was initiated by QNRF to support the response to the COVID-19. We have a set of beautiful partners with us, which we actually work with closely in majority of our projects, like 90% of my projects and 100% of my funded projects are in collaboration with Meda Assistive Technology Center. Meda Assistive Technology Center is a center here in Qatar that looks at supporting assistive technologies for the elderly and the people with disabilities. I have special interest, as you know, and therefore most of my project is aligned with their innovation team projects. I also serve there as a consultant for innovation and research. I also work with a number of centers here in Qatar that look into the groups that I just stated. And in this project, we have with us here the Shafallah Center, which is part of Qatar Social Work, and it actually look into integration children with disability in the community and in the society, and looking into disabilities, including autism. Step by Step is again a center here in Qatar. It's a private center that looks at autism. And basically, these 2 centers work hand in hand with us in most of our projects, as most of our projects are user-centered design. Last but not least, we also work with a startup here in Qatar. This startup helped us in the development of the animation of this project. Introduction. As we all know, autism is a neurological disorder. What do we mean by a neurological disorder? A disorder that affects the development, the cognitive development of the individuals. So this effect is represented in issues or certain behaviors in social communication, certain behaviors in repetitive and restricted term. The use of computers has been facilitated as an intervention to support the behavior and the education of autistic children for the past 10 years. There is a very rich background of literature in this regard. It enabled us basically to support the learning activity. One learning activity that we've noticed, and there are many research that focuses on this learning activity, is the reading. As we all know, reading and writing is the core of learning. As the first phrase in the Quran says, "Iqra." So reading and writing is the most important components of human development. So, and we know that autistic children usually have challenges. And why do they have challenges? Because they face issue in relation to relating the text to the content. As we know, in Qatar, autism is playing the National Autism Strategy is playing a big role in driving the innovation in this regard. And from here, we have seen that actually, when looking at the number of autistic children in Qatar in comparison to the world, it is quite high. As you can see the statistic on the right side of the screen, it is 1 in every 87 child, and that's a study that has been recently published by Qatar Biomedical Research Institute. So we know now that reading is an important task. We also know that autistic children tend to be visual learners. So we tend to show them pictures, as you could see here in the example in front of us. We also know that they enjoy using technologies. It attracts them, as in any child. We also know that the way they are taught is different than the way children in mainstream are taught. The literatures tell us that there is a delay because they are basically learning differently. There is a delay from generalizing a picture they see in the computer or in the book to the natural environment. We then thought how can we support the generalization? We know that virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality are taking over the learning and teaching technologies around the world. It is expected that in 2021, it will dominate the market. Augmented reality for ASD has been used, and actually me and my team have published a literature review, a systematic literature review that looked at the different augmented reality technologies available for autism in terms of teaching and learning. You can find it, it's an open access journal, so you could find it in my Google Scholar page. So then after realizing that this is a problem and we could do something there, we applied for the HBKU Innovation Fund. That's way before the pandemic, 2 years before the pandemic. We got the fund and we developed the first prototype. During the pandemic, as we all know, we all shifted to teaching online. This shift was not easy for us as in individuals that are used to technology. I'm a computer science professor. Again, it was not easy for me and for you guys, I'm sure. Then how about people with disability? How about their parents? There were actually many blog posts and tweets about parents struggling with their children because the issue with the disability, the parent is not trained to teach a child with special need. And that's actually a big issue that the parents faced with the closures of these centers. So what we did here is we looked at that as an opportunity for us to develop a technology that supports them. So we had a research question in mind, a guiding research question, which is how to provide a similar classroom learning experience using technology. We thought of AR as our first solution because we had already developed a prototype for vocabulary reading using AR. We then introduced two aspects. The real-time teaching, where we allow the teacher to teach the child through our platform using the means we are using today, which is the streaming and the conferencing tools. And then we used another aspect, which is designing a robotic talkative avatar that talks to them and take them through the journey of learning. Why it is robotic? Because literature have told us that autistic children engage more with robotic than actual human being, and that's again one of the studies that one of my PhD who just got her PhD was investigating in the past 4 years. So we realized that being a robotic character is important. And then we went into designing the character collectively by the team member and engaging, as I said, a designer, a local designer here in Qatar to help us in designing the talkative avatar. We ended up with this small, basically friendly character, which was actually engaging using the app. Building, as I said, we built the work on our existing research. We've been working in this field since almost 10 years ago in developing serious game prototypes for children with ASD. We develop also some guiding, basically heuristic to evaluate such a platform. We look, as I said, with one of my students. Again, you can find all her work online, basically on my Google Scholar page. We looked at how a child with autism give attention in comparison to the mainstream, to the children in the mainstream schools, or what we call them neurotypical children. We developed the tool using iOS. We have an intention to, inshallah, extend it. We developed the tool in English and Arabic, and that's very important because until now, speaking in this lecture, there is no tool for autistic children in Arabic to learn vocabulary. Our target audience are, of course, the children, the teachers, and the centers. And our plan is to start locally and expand internationally. So what was our research method? Our research method was actually human-centered research because that's my area. Everything I do is actually centered on the human, and that's very important for me because I strongly believe we cannot design any technology tool without user evaluation, without user-centered design. So we adapted what is called participatory design technique, which are techniques that allows the teachers and the main user to be and to voice their opinion as in designers. And that's very important for us. We follow 3 phases of design. The first phase is basically the requirement gathering, in which we did a set of interviews with the teachers and design and get the requirement. That's actually way before the pandemic. That was 2019. Then we did another that's again just close to the pandemic starting. That was March 2020. We get the requirement, then we develop some screens, then we went back and evaluated it with teachers again. All the evaluation were in Shafallah Center and step-by-step center. So both are centers to support children with autism in their learning. The final evaluation happened during the lockdown, actually, but maybe just a bit after the lockdown. That was in 2021, where we had the final prototype. Now, actually, the new phase is actually the user evaluation, where we are planning to conduct user studies with the children themselves, not with the teacher anymore. So these 3 phases only involve the teachers and the specialists, while this phase will involve children to evaluate the tool. So here is, as I just described, the timeline in terms of dates and what happened in each phase. We started by doing interviews. We developed use cases. People who have studied software engineering or human-computer interaction will be very familiar with this process. So then we developed the augmented reality. We then evaluated again with teachers. We got their feedback. Then again, we developed the learning platform, and here where we received the QNRF grant. And then again, we did another evaluation in August 2020, and now, inshallah, we are starting with the user experiment. Actually, by the way, the app is already in the App Store. If you would like, you could email me if you'd like to test it. The requirement gathering, the outcome of our initial talks with the teachers, we realized that there are tools, but none in Arabic. We realized that they are taught in a very instructional way, and we gathered some of the materials they use here in Qatar from the Ministry of Education and Higher Education. We looked at how do I know that the autistic child is learning? What are the assessment tools? How they are evaluated in class? Probably it's different, and it is actually different than the mainstream teaching. Again, also teaching strategy, they are completely different. We then learn more about the challenges. So the challenges the child face and the challenges the caregiver or the teacher face. We then also came up with some recommendation that there's a need for a localization, contextualization, and individual perspective. So what do we mean by localization? One teacher told us, well, when you show the child a picture of a man, and a man in from a Western basically or other Arab countries, they wear different basically dressing, and this is not applicable if they see a man here in Qatar wearing the traditional. So can we have a localized components in the app to allow them to understand our actual context? Contextualization is again the same, but it comes from a bigger perspective. So when I design basically an apple or a strawberry, I would design an object that is actually very relevant to their own surrounding. Individual aspects means basically there is a trend in research in both education and technology and actually medicine, and every field of research is called personalization. So you have personalized medicine, personalized learning, personalized, you name it. So personalized X basically is actually the trend here in research and worldwide. This is another component that we thought is important, and that the teachers highlighted, that basically not all children learn on the same basically speed. So some learn slower, some learn faster. So can I personalize the process? So that's again something we utilized in the app. Here we define the first set of questions. What do they need to learn? What they need to learn words. CVC is constant vowel constant. It's something very common in the learning of every child, not only the autistic. So we start with the constant vowel constant words, and then we go for longer words. So we divided the app to learning and activity. So learning is something they go through gradually with their teachers, and activity is something they practice with. Then we came to the next evaluation. At that point, we hired a freelancer who developed these screens for us. The screens were not really what they wanted, and that's the beauty of participatory design. You develop something, then you go back to the user. So, for example, they said the font is not autistic friendly, let's say. Secondly, if you can see, there is a background here. This is very distracting for autistic children. Same here. So what happens in this app, they click on these buttons, and then they have this as a card, as a hardboard card. They scan and they get the letter or the word in an augmented reality. So this card was not really, again, autistic friendly because of the background, because of the font. So these are few of the feedback we received. Then I had Asma, which was my master student who just graduated actually. So she was doing the interviews and analyzing it as a part of her master thesis. So basically, she came up with these nice thematic maps where she categorized how the people came up or discuss the ideas. So some of them discussed the presentation of as I said, the font, the look and feel, the tangibility, how tangible it is. Again, as I said, the personalization. Then if there is a voice, then the speech, the phonetics is important. The way it scans the card and the way they interact with the interface. Here, basically a set of feedback from Shifallah Center that we've received. The first thing they said is that the tools they need to have needs to be basically, or object they need to explore needs to be matching the real world. That's very important. And people who are studying human-computer interaction or have some experience in design and UX design, they would know basically this is extremely important when designing. And when it comes to autistic children, it becomes more important because you want to help them to generalize between what they see in the screen and what they see in the real world. And for us, and for children in main school or neuro developing children who do not have autism, this might be slightly easy. So you need to put more effort as a designer when designing for autistic children, especially when it comes to be matching between the real life component and the computerized component. They all came across the personalization, as I said, personalized learning. So they wanted to record the voice of the teacher, the voice of the child. They wanted the robotic character to be to talk in a non-robotic way, to talk in a natural way. As I said, they wanted the localization and contextualizing the app. They suggested, of course, changing the text, the color, the audio. They emphasize on consistency. And again, people working in UX design and human-computer interaction will know that this is extremely important. Consistency, learnability, error detection, those are the fundamental principles of design. They also talked about the flexibility of the app and the ability for them to generalize the user experience. We also done the same set of interviews with step by step, where we go there, we show the teacher the design, and we allow them to explain what do they think about the design. Same observation came into text. As I said, they said just remove any distraction that has nothing. So if you have a screen and you would like to put your screen in a fancy way and put some, just remove this, because you are dealing with a very special population and you really want to, and attention is an asset for us in general, and for the vulnerable population, it becomes a more important asset. So you need to utilize their attention in a very unique way. And if you look at the literature in attention and autism, it is a very rich area of literature. I had one of my PhD students working in it, and she, alhamdulillah, she finished her PhD, and she joined us now as a postdoctoral researcher at HBKU, and she's also continuing her work in looking into attention and autism. As I said, it is a very precious asset. They said that the font should be clearer. At this stage, we had the augmented reality model as a static model, and they needed a model that is more dynamic. Same issues or feedback components appeared in the discussion with step-by-step, the learnability, the color combination, and there where I will introduce how we reached to the new version. So we took their feedback, we went back to our lab, and we started developing the second version. In the second version, we came up with this character. This character actually was designed by a company here in Qatar. It's called the Space Crescent. The character features were actually, what we did, we communicated the company. We asked them if they would like to collaborate with us. They agreed. Then we communicated to them some initial, aspects, including the using cool colors, and we send them basically the color scheme. Actually, there is a well-known color scheme when designing for autism. We also send them some of our expectation. We call the character marfouq. In Arabic, it's an Arabic word, and it is assembles kindness and companion. And why we called him or her marfouq is basically because the app was initially called Marvok. MARVOC, which stands for Mobile Augmented Reality Vocabulary, but now it is more of an educational platform. So we wanted it to be more of a character, have its own character and look and feel. We called him Marfouk. And the idea is Marfouk will help the child learn the vocabulary and go through the educational features using the voice-over features in the iOS platform. This is almost final version. Now we are actually working on version 3. The almost final version is basically has a number of views. You have the student view, the teacher view, and the parent view. So the student view will allow the students to play with the word, as I said, learning and activities, and there are games now. The teacher or parent view, it will allow them to monitor. They have a dashboard to monitor their children. They can chat with the teacher. So this is a parent view. They can add teachers, they can add their children. Here they can start, and actually the children only can start the app through their parents. Here are more additional functionalities. So we have the learning comes in levels. The activities again comes in levels. Here we used actually, and I have to mention here, we've used augmented reality symbols developed by Meta Center. The augmented reality symbols are of a set of symbols called Tawasul. Tawasul is an augmentative communication symbol, basically a database that allows you to use a different set, a very rich set of communication symbols that are specially developed for people who communicate through symbols. And it is very widely used. Tawasul symbols are very widely used. They are used in many contexts. So they are used for autism. It is very heavily used in the Shifallah Center. We recently heard that it is being used in refugee center where there is no one language in common. So they use Tawasul symbol to communicate, and it is an open source. I would encourage you to check Meta Innovation portal, where you could find all these amazing things that they do. So what we did, we actually used their symbols instead of us looking into symbols, and they were designed actually initially for this project. It was actually again a grant for this project. Here we have basically a set of games that teach children how to recognize emotion. Why emotions? Because again, this is something that autism is known for, that the child or even the adult with autism struggle with recognizing emotions. So recognizing a happy face, a sad face. It is a very interesting field, and I would really encourage you, if you are interested in human-computer interaction, to look at the different vulnerable population and understand how they basically think about the world around them, and how can we design things that suits them. Here again, it's another set of games. Here, basically, the way the app works, you could scan a card or use the keyboard. The app comes with a set of cards that the user could use to scan and create a word or learn a letter, and so. Here, as I said, we have the parent view. You could chat, you could video conference with the teacher. You can see the child performance, and you could add different children, more or add and remove. You also have an access to the student view. The teacher tool is actually, he or she could access the different parents, chat with them, check the children performance. And that's very important for the teacher to know, especially during the pandemic, to know that the students are active and learning. then did the same. We had this app, and we went back to the schools, and that was basically in our evaluation. We learned about what can we do next. So one important aspect is scaffolding. I don't know if you remember when we were kids, and the way we learned the alphabet, we learn them in a very gradual way. So you learn A, B, C, then you spend some time learning them, like weeks, and then you shift to the second set of three. Depends on the teacher, but we learn in a very gradual way, and that's called scaffolding. And that's a very well-known technique of teaching and learning. Even me as a professor in a university, this is how we teach. We start the course or the semester with a very introductory material, and as the semester proceeds, as we go forward in the semester, the material becomes harder and harder, and we add more theories. So that's something that the teacher would like to see in the app as well. Again, we came to the process of customization. People are tending to personalize the learning process in a way that in a ways that are very creative, and basically some teachers told us, well, I want to choose the words that the child learn. I don't want the app to tell me. So I will give the ability for the teacher to choose the word, to choose the 3D objects, and so. Another aspect, they were saying that some children should not repeat terminologies, and they should, or letters. They should give less emphasis on repetition, because another issue that autistic children face is the echoing. Means that they keep repeating a word after the teacher only because it sounds nice, or it makes them calm or so. We had also the issue of matching the real world with the actual components, and that's again with the 3D objects. So an apple should really look like an apple in the real world, especially that we have the issue, or they have the capability of creating a 3D version. So why don't we choose, and there where we actually ask the teacher themselves to use Google Poly and choose the object that they like, and we will put them in the app. They emphasize, and that's very important, they emphasize on how feedback happens. So when you click a button, the feedback is, if you are opening a window, you will see the window. But sometimes the feedback is not evident, right? So what we did here is basically, actually, one of the therapists emphasized that the feedback should be in written and in verbal. So Marfouk here will tell them, now you will go to the next screen, or so. So he or she will give them basically the feedback in verbal and in text. And we actually agreed that every feedback component should be in both written or visual or verbal. We also talked about rewards and motivation. A teacher emphasized to us we should not, like, for example, if the child did well, we should praise them. But if they did not do well, we should not put them down. We should just encourage them to try again. And that's very important with autistic children, because this could put them away from learning if they are disappointed for a number of times. So here is some feedbacks that we received. Basically, as I said, the teacher wanted to predefine the words, basically. The models, as I said, if we have an apple, it should really look like an apple in the real world. If we have a cat, and actually one teacher said, if we have an animal like a cat or a dog, why don't they make sound for the child also to relate the sound, like the sound of a cat or the bark of a dog, to the actual object in real life. The feedback should be reasonable in terms of verbal and written. Children with ASD are visual learners, and that we always need to put in mind. So they suggested that visual word comes before the word, like the sequence. And as I said, that the picture should be related to the sound, and we should have some motivation in terms of visual. So what we thought about having like some fireworks or some, you know, some motivating aspects related to the visual, not only like a well done or an pose. We needed something more engaging. So to conclude, as you've seen in this lecture, I've taken you through a journey of almost 1 year and a half to develop an app that we want to be useful. I really want to emphasize here that getting something off the shelf that is not being evaluated with the target user usually create many issues and many challenges. We've all been there, whether it's us, our family members. Like, let me give you another example. I'm working also with the elderly to designing technologies for people over 60. We all have a family member who actually rely on us in setting up their phones. Like, why do we need to do that? Why don't the companies that design these technologies design technologies that are friendly with the elderly, that allow them to live independently without relying on? And that's again another project which is funded by Qatar National Research Fund, as well as in Doha Institute or International Institute of Family. And MEDA Center. We work with the University of Ottawa in Canada to develop a set of guidelines to develop technologies for the elderly in the Arab world. So for this project, our next step, as I said, we will use this system or this platform with children, and we will use a single subject design where we will actually have a test for the child before he or she use the app, and then we'll ask them to use the app for, let's say, 8 weeks with their teachers or their parents. And then we'll have another test to see if the app has engaged them and created basically a way for them to learn letter in a very engaging, fun way, rather than the basic way they have in the classroom today. As I said, the app is available in the App Store. And if you like to participate or take part in the study, just contact me. This is my email. Thank you very much, and I'm ready for any questions if you like.
Thank you, Dr. Dana, for such an interesting talk. The first question is actually about how can an Algerian PhD student join the research team. So if you can just show your email quickly again.
Sure.
So hopefully this person takes a screenshot or something.
Actually, yeah, you if you Google Dena Al-Thani, you'll find all my details. Actually, all my contact details are online, like my office number and my email. But I just want to say something, that it is important for the student, if they would like to apply for HBKU, they need to look into basically early applications, which are starting next November. So now the applications are closed. They would need to look at the early applications when it opens in next November. They maybe, if they like my research area, they could get in touch with me before that. We could discuss what they can write in their personal or research statement, which they submit with their application. And from there, they could take it forward. They apply, they go through the normal admission process, and then inshallah we can see them in HBKU.
Inshallah. So the second question we have is that some autistic children are very good and intelligent, but
Yes.
some do face more difficulties. Do you believe that you and your team, with the help of artificial intelligence, can overcome this problem?
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting question. Actually, as you correctly said, autism is a spectrum. So you have the severe, you have the mild, you have the moderate, and then you have the one that are up on this spectrum that are intellectually, they have no issues, they go into mainstream, but maybe in terms of communication and behavior, they exhibit some issue, and again, they would remain basically vulnerable to a certain set of vulnerabilities. So that's, as you said, this is a very good question, actually. And actually, the app we are developing serve the mild to moderate, while we are also looking into the severe with the Shafallah Center, because the Shafallah Center in Qatar also serve the severe cases. So we are also looking into evaluating the app with the severe cases. For the use of artificial intelligence, actually, this is only one project that I presented today, but I have actually 3 projects with the autism. One of the projects, which I just said that I work with one of my PhD students who just got her PhD, is the use of AI to assess attention when a child is engaged in a virtual reality game. So an autistic child is engaged in a virtual reality game. I use an eye tracking and a webcam to monitor their facial expression and their eye movement. And using that, I could predict when they give an attention. That's an AI project, pure AI project that we actually received a patent in the US for. We have published, I think, 4 journal publications. You can, inshallah, find them on my Google Scholar if you're interested. That's an ongoing project. There is, as I said, attention is an asset for everyone, not only for autism, and it is something we look for in our group in terms of autism. It's a very active topic in our group. We are known worldwide for it. I have another project which also actually I have a master student who just finished, and he's joining us also as a PhD. So he looked at developing a chatting app for adults with autism. Adults who are non-verbal. So there are many adults with autism who are non-verbal, so they don't talk. So you can imagine how much isolation they went into through this pandemic. So he developed an app which we evaluated with 7 users in Qatar and in Lebanon, and it showed that their social communication skill progressed during the use of the app in a period of 16 weeks. So that's again another group, and as you said in the question, clearly there are many groups in terms of autism. They are different, and actually our project in AI and autism tell us this, that they give attention differently, not only in terms of how severe the case is. In fact, each individual give attention differently.
Thank you, Dr. Dana. We have a third question that is, what kind of data did you use for your AI models?
So as I said, we used basically the webcam and the eye tracking. So the eye tracking data gives you very rich set of data, including the eye movement. The eye movement, there are many parameters, including the fixation, where I fix, how I move, where I move first, and basically the scan path. So there is a set of parameters that you could get, and then what you would do, you would need to basically explore the data and see what is useful. In terms of the facial recognition, we use the facial landmarks. We used a geometric model in terms of the machine learning, and we use the XY basically coordinate of the different landmarks, like the eye, the smile, the nose, the cheeks, and it was a very interesting project. I'm still continuing the work. We're still publishing out of it. It was a nice project, and if you're interested in such project, you could get in touch with me.
And the last question is about the autistic people that have other disabilities, such as blindness, they can't speak. So are they included on such platforms?
Actually, the platform I showed today, no, it was meant to the mild to moderate, but the Shafallah Center is exploring it with the severe, which are basically the one that are non-verbal, but they are in the process of being taught. But they were not initially in the design process of this project. But as I said, we have different projects that look into non-verbal autistic adults. We are open, actually. I have a QNRF, Qatar National Research Fund, NPRP project will be kicking off this summer, inshallah, for the next 3 years. It's a $500,000 project, and that looks at, again, at autism and multi-sensory interfaces. So interfaces that does not really focus on visual. So, and that's the trend in human-computer interaction, that we should go beyond visual. We are putting a lot of pressure on our eyes while we could use many senses: touch, smell, taste, and there are interfaces that could be utilized. So that's our next project, inshallah. I saw a question here actually on privacy. Someone asked about the privacy.
Yes, 1 second, I'm pulling it up.
So here I saw, what about the security and privacy? For example, do users have different patterns of maintaining privacy? So I don't know if you're referring to the experiment itself, or basically for the experiment. When we do any experiment and we collect data, for us as a research group, we follow basically the state of Qatar guidelines in terms of privacy, as well as in the university guidelines. So there is actually very clear guidelines introduced by the Ministry of Health. It's called human subject research, where we need to maintain, firstly, the data is maintained in a locked room with no internet. It's very protective the way we collect data, and that's basically to basically preserve the privacy of user, because all we do is human subject research. So, but that's from a research perspective. But from a user perspective, it's not really the focus of my research group.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Dana, for joining us today. Such an interesting topic, and I think in the Middle East, autism doesn't get much attention. So it's so nice to see that you dedicated your life's work to these people. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you. Well, good luck.
There is one more question, I think. Oh, sorry. Are there future aspirations to make artificial intelligence control security?
For me, security is not really my area. We have a big group actually in the College of Science and Engineering. Probably the students here from CSE, HBKU would know that we have a big group of cybersecurity people, but it's not really. I work in one project in basically detecting spam messages for and how can I let the user know that this message is spam or not. And this is a project funded again by QNRF, and it's an NPRP project, and Ooredoo is a collaborator. We are actually now conducting the user studies. We are interviewing people on how why if a person is a spam victim, we ask him or her to contact us, and we do an interview with them, and we're trying to analyze why do they fall into spam. We also use the data of Ooredoo and basically did used machine learning. The paper is actually already published. You will also find it in my Google Scholar page. We looked at why do people fall into spam from the data of the complaints filed in Ooredoo. The paper was interesting. It was by one of our master students. She's done very well, and she's writing now also a journal paper about it. So that's the only topic or the only project I touch close to security in.
Again, thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us. And this was a great talk. I think we all learned so much. And thank you again.
Thank you very much. And I hope to see some of you in HBKU.